The first Earth dog to step foot on an alien trading post was a golden retriever named Biscuit. She belonged to Captain Maya Chen of the cargo vessel Starlight Express, and she had been smuggled aboard in direct violation of Galactic Commerce Regulation 447.3, which stated that no unregistered biological organisms could be transported between star systems without proper documentation and quarantine procedures. Maya had tried to leave Biscuit behind on Earth, she really had, but when she saw those big brown eyes watching her pack her bags for a 2-year trading run to the outer colonies, she simply could not do it. Biscuit had been with her through the death of her mother, through her divorce, through the bankruptcy of her first shipping company. The dog was more than a pet. She was family. So Maya had hidden Biscuit in a specially modified cargo container with air filtration, water recycling, and enough food to last the 6-week journey to Nexus Station, the largest trading post in the Triangulum sector. The problem came when Biscuit escaped. Maya was in the middle of negotiating a deal for processed silicon wafers with a Corthian merchant named Vexel when she heard the screaming. It was a high-pitched sound, almost like a whistle, coming from somewhere in the main marketplace. She excused herself and ran toward the noise, her heart pounding in her chest. She found Biscuit sitting in the middle of the food court, her tail wagging happily, surrounded by a circle of terrified aliens. The Corthians, who were tall beings with gray skin and large black eyes, had pressed themselves against the walls. The Vellani, small furry creatures who ran most of the food stalls, had climbed on top of their counters. A group of Synthari, crystalline beings who communicated through pulses of light, were flashing bright red, which Maya knew meant extreme distress. And in the center of it all was Biscuit, looking around at everyone with her tongue hanging out, clearly wondering why nobody wanted to play with her. Security arrived within minutes. They were a mixed team of Corthians and humans, all wearing the blue uniforms of Nexus Station Authority. The lead officer, a Corthian named Commander Thex, pointed his scanner at Biscuit and then looked at Maya with what she could only describe as horror. "This creature," Thex said slowly, "is a predator. Our scans indicate it is descended from pack-hunting carnivores. It has forward-facing eyes for tracking prey, teeth designed for tearing flesh, and a cardiovascular system capable of sustained pursuit over long distances." Maya looked at Biscuit, who had rolled over onto her back and was wiggling her legs in the air, hopping for belly rubs. "She is harmless," Maya said. "Harmless?" Thex's voice rose in pitch. "According to our database, creatures like this hunted in packs on your homeworld for thousands of years. They brought down animals 10 times their size. They worked together to trap and kill prey with strategic precision." "That was a long time ago," Maya said. "Now she mostly hunts tennis balls and the occasional squirrel." "What is a squirrel?" "Never mind. Look, she is not dangerous. She is a pet. Humans keep them as companions. They live in our homes with us." The aliens around them began murmuring to each other. Maya caught fragments of conversation in various languages, most of which her translator could not process. But she heard one phrase repeated several times: "lives with them." Commander Thex leaned closer to Maya, his black eyes studying her face. "You are telling me that humans voluntarily share their living spaces with apex predators?" "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds weird. But yes, we have been doing it for about 15,000 years." There was a long silence. Then one of the Vellani, a small creature with orange fur and wide eyes, climbed down from its counter and took a cautious step toward Biscuit. "Do not approach it," Thex warned. But the Vellani ignored him. It crept closer, its nose twitching. Biscuit, still on her back, turned her head to look at the small alien. Her tail began to wag. The Vellani reached out a tiny paw and touched Biscuit's fur. It made a sound that Maya's translator rendered as pure surprise. "Soft," the Vellani said. "It is so soft." Biscuit, sensing a potential friend, rolled over and nudged the Vellani with her nose. The small alien stumbled backward but did not run. Instead, it let out a chittering sound that Maya's translator identified as laughter. "It pushed me," the Villani said, sounding delighted. "With its face. Why did it do that?" "She wants you to pet her," Maya explained. "She likes being touched." The Villani reached out again, this time running its paw along Biscuit's head. Biscuit closed her eyes and made a contented sound. The Villani's fur puffed up with excitement. "This is extraordinary," it said. "A predator that seeks affection from other species. I have never encountered anything like this." Other aliens began to approach, their fear slowly transforming into curiosity. A young Corthian, barely more than a child, asked if it could touch the dog too. Maya nodded, and soon Biscuit was surrounded by a small crowd of aliens, all taking turns stroking her fur and marveling at how she leaned into their touch. Commander Thex watched all of this with an expression that Maya could not quite read. Finally, he turned to her and said, "I am going to need you to come to my office and fill out some forms, but I do not think I will be confiscating your creature. I have a feeling that would cause more problems than it would solve." Maya spent the next 3 hours answering questions about dogs. What did they eat? How long did they live? Could they be trained? Did they all enjoy being touched, or was Biscuit unusual? Were there different kinds? How big did they get? Were the large ones more dangerous? She answered as best she could, and by the end of the interview, Commander Thex had made her an offer. "The Nexus Station Authority would like to hire you as a consultant," he said. "We want to understand these animals better, and we want to know if they could be beneficial for the station's residents." Maya thought about her struggling cargo business, about the debts she still owed, about the uncertain future that had driven her to take this trading run in the first place. "I am listening," she said. That night, Maya lay in her cabin with Biscuit curled up at her feet. Through the viewport, she could see the vast sprawl of Nexus Station, its lights twinkling against the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, millions of aliens were going about their lives, completely unaware that their world was about to change. Because of a dog. Maya smiled and reached down to scratch behind Biscuit's ears. "You have no idea what you have started, girl," she whispered. Biscuit just yawned and went back to sleep. 6 months after the incident in the food court, Nexus Station had become the most talked-about location in the entire Triangulum sector. Not because of its trade deals or its strategic position between 3 major shipping lanes. No, everyone was talking about the dogs. Maya had brought in 12 more golden retrievers from Earth, along with handlers who could train both the dogs and the aliens who wanted to interact with them. The program had started small, just a few sessions per week, where station residents could meet the dogs in a controlled environment. But demand had grown so quickly that they had to expand. Now they had an entire wing of the station dedicated to what they called the Canine Interaction Center. There were rooms for individual sessions, group areas where multiple aliens could meet dogs at the same time, and even a small outdoor park that had been constructed using artificial gravity and simulated sunlight. The waiting list was 3 months long. Maya was reviewing the day's schedule when Dr. Rila walked in. Rila was a Corthian psychologist who had been assigned to study the effects of dog interactions on alien mental health. She had been skeptical at first, but that skepticism had not lasted long. "We have the results from the latest study," Rila said, setting a data pad on Maya's desk. "I thought you would want to see them right away." Maya picked up the pad and began scrolling through the numbers. Her eyes widened as she read. A 47% reduction in stress hormones. That cannot be right. "It is right," Rila said. "We measured cortisol-equivalent compounds in 300 subjects before and after dog interaction sessions. The results were consistent across all species tested." "Even the Synthari?" Maya asked. The crystalline beings did not have hormones in the traditional sense, so she was not sure how they could be affected. "Especially the Synthari," Rila said. Their internal resonance patterns showed a marked increase in stability after spending time with dogs. One subject told me it was the most peaceful she had felt in 50 years. Maya leaned back in her chair, trying to process what she was hearing. How is this possible? I mean, I know dogs make people feel good, but this is something else. Rila sat down across from her. I have a theory. Would you like to hear it? Please. Most species in the galaxy evolved in environments where showing affection was dangerous. To touch another being, to let yourself be vulnerable around them, these things could get you killed. So we developed barriers. We kept our distance from each other, even from our own families in some cases. Rila paused, her black eyes distant. But humans did something different. You took a predator, one of the most efficient hunters on your planet, and you taught it to love you. You did not just tame it. You made it want to be near you. You made it happy to see you. You created an animal that gives affection freely, without conditions, without judgment. And that is significant, Maya asked. It is revolutionary, Rila said. For most of us, receiving unconditional affection is a completely new experience. Our brains do not know what to do with it. The sensation is overwhelming at first, but then something happens. We relax. We let our guard down. And for maybe the first time in our lives, we feel safe. Maya thought about Biscuit, who was currently napping in the corner of the office. The dog had adapted well to life on the station. She seemed to understand instinctively that the aliens were different from humans, and she adjusted her behavior accordingly. She was gentler with the Vellani, who were small and fragile. She was patient with the Synthari, who needed extra time to warm up to her. And she had learned to communicate with the Corthians through body language alone, since they found barking distressing. There is something else, Rila said. I have been contacted by medical facilities on 7 other stations. They want to implement similar programs. 7. The news has spread quickly. Apparently, some of our visitors have been sharing their experiences on the Galactic Network. There are discussion groups dedicated entirely to talking about Earth dogs. Some of them have thousands of members. Maya laughed. You are telling me that aliens are posting about dogs on the space internet? Essentially, yes. And they are not just posting. They are asking questions. They want to know where they can get their own dogs. They want to know if dogs can live on their homeworlds. They want to know if they can breed dogs in space. This was getting out of hand. Maya had started this program as a way to pay off her debts and maybe earn enough credits to upgrade her ship. She had not expected to start an interstellar movement. What should we do? She asked. Rila tilted her head in a gesture Maya had come to recognize as the Corthian equivalent of a shrug. We could ignore the requests, focus on our work here, but I do not think that would be wise. Why not? Because the demand will only grow, and if we do not meet it responsibly, others will try to meet it irresponsibly. Unscrupulous breeders, smugglers, people who do not understand what dogs need or how to care for them properly. The animals will suffer, and eventually, so will the aliens who try to keep them. Maya rubbed her temples. She had a headache coming on. So you think we should expand? I think we should reach out to Earth. Talk to the authorities there, the veterinary organizations, the breeding associations. We need to establish standards for how dogs are transported, housed, and cared for in alien environments. We need to create training programs for alien handlers. We need to make sure this is done right. It was a massive undertaking. Maya was just a cargo ship captain with 1 dog and a lot of debt. She was not qualified to oversee an operation of this scale. But then again, she thought, maybe that was exactly what made her qualified. She understood dogs not as a scientist or a bureaucrat, but as someone who loved them. She knew what it felt like to have a bad day and come home to a wagging tail. She knew the simple joy of throwing a ball and watching a dog bring it back. She knew the comfort of a warm body pressed against her on cold nights. These were the things that mattered. These were the things she could teach. All right, she said finally. Let us do it, but I am going to need help. Rila smiled, which was unusual for a Korthian. They did not typically show their teeth. I have already put together a list of potential partners: human veterinarians who specialize in working with dogs, alien psychologists who understand the therapeutic applications, business experts who can help us manage the logistics. You planned this, Maya said accusingly. I planned for multiple outcomes. This was the most likely one. Rila stood up and headed for the door. Oh, and there is one more thing. Commander Thex has put in a request. A request? He wants a dog, for himself. Apparently, he has been reading those discussion groups and has decided that his home feels empty. Maya thought about the stern security commander who had once looked at Biscuit with horror, who had cataloged all the ways a dog could kill an alien, who had lectured her about regulations and protocols. Tell him we will put him on the waiting list, she said. He is already on it, number 847. Maya laughed. 847 aliens waiting for their own dog. 6 months ago, the idea would have seemed impossible. Now it was just the beginning. 2 years had passed since Biscuit's escape in the food court, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Earth Dog Distribution Network, as it was now officially called, had offices on 47 trading posts across 12 sectors. They had transported over 3,000 dogs from Earth to alien worlds, each one carefully matched with a handler who had undergone extensive training. The waiting list had grown to over 50,000 names. Maya stood at the window of her new office, looking out at the construction crews building the latest expansion of the Nexus Station facility. They were adding a veterinary hospital, a breeding center, and a training academy that would certify alien handlers from across the galaxy. Behind her, the door chimed. She turned to see Commander Thex enter, his dog walking beside him. The Korthian had finally reached the top of the waiting list 6 months ago and had been matched with a calm, older Labrador named Max. The pair had become inseparable. We have a problem, Thex said, taking a seat across from her desk. Max settled at his feet with a contented sigh. Just one, Maya asked, sitting down. That would be a nice change. A serious one. Thex placed a data pad on her desk. The hegemony of Voss has filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Commerce Council. They claim that Earth is engaging in biological warfare. Maya felt her blood run cold. Biological warfare, because of dogs. They are arguing that by distributing predatory animals throughout alien communities, humans are deliberately weakening other species, making them psychologically dependent on Earth, creating a weapon that does not look like a weapon. That is ridiculous. Perhaps, but the Vossians have influence on the Council. If they push this complaint, it could result in sanctions against Earth. It could shut down the entire program. Maya leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. She had known this was coming. The hegemony of Voss had been hostile to humans since first contact. They were an insular species that valued strength and self-sufficiency above all else. The idea of forming emotional bonds with other creatures was foreign to them, shameful, even. What do they want? She asked. They want the dogs removed from all trading posts. They want the breeding programs shut down, and they want Earth to be fined for what they call cultural contamination. Cultural contamination, Maya laughed bitterly, because aliens have found something that makes them happy. The Vossians believe that happiness is a weakness. They think we are making other species soft. Maya stood up and began packing. She could feel her anger building, but she forced herself to stay calm. Getting emotional would not help. When is the council hearing? She asked. 3 weeks. You will be expected to testify. Me. You started this. You are the one everyone associates with the program. If anyone can convince the council that dogs are not a weapon, it is you. Maya looked at Biscuit, who was sleeping in her usual corner. The old girl was getting gray around the muzzle now, slower than she used to be. But she still wagged her tail every morning when Maya woke up. She still got excited at the prospect of walks. She still knew when Maya was sad and would press close against her until she felt better. How could anyone look at that and see a weapon? The next 3 weeks were a blur of preparation. Maya gathered testimonials from alien dog owners across the galaxy. She collected medical data showing the health benefits of canine companionship. She reached out to psychologists, veterinarians, and community leaders who could speak to the positive impact dogs had on their populations. But the Vashans were preparing too. They released propaganda videos showing dogs as savage predators, using footage from Earth's ancient history to paint them as killing machines. They hired experts to argue that humans had selectively bred dogs to be addictive, stimulating reward centers in alien brains in ways that created unhealthy dependencies. The debate raged across the galactic network. Some species sided with the Vashans, viewing the sudden popularity of dogs with suspicion. Others defended the program passionately, sharing stories of how their dogs had changed their lives. Maya read every post, every comment, every article, and what she noticed was that the most powerful arguments were not the statistics or the expert opinions. They were the personal stories. The Korthian trader who had been alone for decades before his dog gave him a reason to come home. The Vellani child who had been afraid of everything until a gentle spaniel taught her that not all big creatures were scary. The Synthari poet who wrote that her dog's presence had brought harmony to her crystalline song in ways she could not explain. These were the stories that mattered. These were the truth she needed to tell. On the day of the hearing, Maya stood before the Galactic Commerce Council in their grand chamber. The room was circular, with delegations from hundreds of species arranged in rising tiers around a central speaking platform. The Vashan representative, a tall creature with dark purple skin and eyes like chips of obsidian, glared at her from across the room. She had prepared a speech. It was full of facts and figures, carefully crafted arguments designed to address every point the Vashans had raised. But as she stood there, looking out at all those alien faces, she realized that facts were not what they needed to hear. 12 years ago, she began, setting her prepared notes aside, my mother died. It was sudden, an accident. One day she was there and the next she was gone. I did not know how to live without her. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I stopped caring about anything. The chamber was silent. This was not what they had expected. My friends tried to help. My family tried to help, but nothing worked. I was drowning and I could not find a way back to the surface. And then one day, a neighbor knocked on my door. She was holding a puppy. She said her dog had just had a litter and she thought I might like one. Maya paused, feeling the emotion rising in her throat. I said no. I told her I could barely take care of myself. I could not be responsible for another life. But she left the puppy anyway, just put her down on my floor and walked out. That puppy was Biscuit, and she saved my life. Not because she fixed anything, not because she made the pain go away, but because she needed me. She needed me to feed her and walk her and play with her. She needed me to get out of bed in the morning. And slowly, one day at a time, taking care of her taught me how to take care of myself again. Maya looked directly at the Vashan representative. You call this biological warfare. You say we are making other species weak, but I have seen strength that you cannot understand. I have seen a Korthian commander, a being who prides himself on emotional control, weep with joy when his dog greeted him after a long journey. I have seen a Vellani family overcome generations of fear because a dog showed their children that gentleness exists. That is not weakness. That is courage. That is growth. That is the best of what any species can be. Dogs do not make us dependent. They teach us to love. And love is the most powerful force in the universe. It builds civilizations. It creates art and music and beauty. It gives us reasons to keep going when everything seems hopeless. She spread her hands. I am not asking you to accept dogs if you do not want them. The hegemony of Vas can continue to believe that emotions are weakness. That is your right. But do not take this away from the species who have found something beautiful. Do not punish the galaxy for learning to love." Maya stepped back from the podium. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly, the Vellani delegation began to make a sound, a rhythmic clicking that she had learned was their form of applause. Others joined in. The Synthari flashed bright blue, a color of approval. Even some of the Korthians nodded their heads. The Voshan representative's expression did not change, but Maya noticed that he did not look quite as certain as he had before. The council's deliberation lasted 4 days. Maya spent most of that time in her quarters, trying not to think about what would happen if they ruled against the program. The galactic network was flooded with speculation. Betting pools had formed predicting the outcome. Some species had already begun making contingency plans, preparing to hide their dogs if the order came to surrender them. On the 5th day, Maya was summoned back to the council chamber. This time, she was not alone. Hundreds of aliens had traveled to the station to hear the verdict, and thousands more were watching via broadcast. Maya took her place on the speaking platform and waited. The council speaker, an ancient being of a species Maya did not recognize, floated to the center of the chamber. Its voice, when it spoke, seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The Council has considered the complaint filed by the hegemony of Voss regarding the distribution of Earth canines. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, we have reached a decision." Maya held her breath. "The complaint is dismissed. The Council finds no evidence that Earth has engaged in biological warfare or cultural contamination. The canine distribution program may continue under existing regulations." The chamber erupted. Cheers, clicks, flashes of light, sounds Maya could not identify. She felt tears streaming down her face and did not bother to wipe them away. Behind her, she heard Thex making a sound she had never heard from a Korthian before, something between a laugh and a sob. But the speaker was not finished. "However," the being continued, and the chamber fell silent again, "the Council has noted a concerning lack of structure in the current program. We are recommending the establishment of an official galactic canine authority, jointly administered by Earth and interested member species, to ensure that the distribution, breeding, and care of Earth dogs meets universal standards." Maya nodded. She had expected something like this. The program had grown too big too fast. It needed oversight. "Furthermore," the speaker said, "the Council has received an unusual request. The delegation from the hegemony of Voss has asked to speak." A murmur went through the crowd. The Voshan representative rose from his seat and made his way down to the speaking platform. His face was unreadable as he stood before the Council. "The hegemony of Voss accepts the Council's ruling," he said, his voice stiff. "We do not agree with it, but we will abide by it." He turned to face Maya. For a long moment he simply looked at her. Then he spoke again, and his voice was different this time, quieter, almost uncertain. "During the deliberations, I had occasion to spend time in the medical wing of this station. There was an incident during my travels here. Nothing serious, but they wanted to monitor me overnight." He paused. "There was a dog there, a therapy animal, I was told. It came to my room and sat with me." The chamber was utterly silent. "I did not want it there. I tried to send it away, but it would not go. It just sat beside my bed and looked at me with those eyes. I have never seen such eyes. There was no judgment in them, no expectation, just presence." The Voshan's hands, Maya noticed, were trembling slightly. "I have lived for 247 standard years. In all that time, I have never felt what I felt in that room. I do not have words for it in my language. The closest translation would be something like being held without being touched." He looked down at the floor. "I do not understand your species, human. I do not understand how you could create such a thing, how you could take a predator and teach it to love. It should not be possible, but it is." When he looked up again, His obsidian eyes were glistening with something Maya had never expected to see from a Vashan. "I would like," he said slowly, as if each word cost him something, "to add my name to the waiting list." The chamber exploded again, but this time the noise was different. This was the sound of barriers breaking, of old enemies becoming something else. Maya watched as other Vashans in the gallery shifted uncomfortably, some looking horrified, others looking curious. A crack had formed in their wall of isolation, and it was only going to grow wider. Later that night, Maya sat in her quarters with Biscuit's head in her lap. The old dog was tired from all the excitement, but she had insisted on coming to the hearing. Maya suspected she knew something important was happening, even if she could not understand the details. "We did it, girl," Maya whispered, stroking her fur. "We actually did it." But even as she said the words, she knew that this was not the end. It was a beginning. The Galactic Canine Authority would need to be established. Standards would need to be written. A new generation of dogs would need to be bred and trained. And there were still species out there who had never heard of dogs, who had no idea what they were missing. The door chimed. Maya called for it to open, and Dr. Rila entered. The Corthian psychologist looked tired but happy. "I thought you should know," Rila said. "The waiting list is now at 112,000, and we have received official requests from 37 species that previously had no interest in the program. Including the Vashans. Including the Vashans, though I suspect their government will try to discourage it. Old habits are hard to break." Rila sat down across from her. "There is something else. I have been thinking about what happens next." "What do you mean?" "Dogs were just the beginning. Earth has other companion animals, does it not? Cats, birds, horses." Maya laughed. "You want to introduce cats to the galaxy?" "Not necessarily, but the principle is the same. Humans have a unique relationship with animals. You have spent thousands of years learning to live alongside other species, to care for them, to love them. That is something no other species in the galaxy has accomplished." Rila leaned forward. "I believe this could be humanity's greatest gift to the universe. Not technology, not resources, but this simple truth, that it is possible to love something different from yourself. That vulnerability is not weakness. That connection matters." Maya looked at Biscuit, who had fallen asleep, her paws twitching as she dreamed. What was she chasing in those dreams? Squirrels, tennis balls, alien friends she had made along the way. "Maybe you are right," Maya said. "But for now, let us focus on the dogs. Let us make sure we get this right." Rila nodded, agreed, one species at a time. She stood to leave but paused at the door. "Maya, thank you for bringing Biscuit to the station, for starting all of this." "I did not mean to start anything," Maya said. She escaped from her container. "Perhaps, but sometimes the best things happen by accident." Rila left and Maya sat in the quiet with her sleeping dog. Outside the viewport, ships came and went from the station, carrying beings of every imaginable shape and size. Some of them, Maya knew, were carrying dogs now. Dogs that would be waiting at the door when their owners came home. Dogs that would curl up beside them at night. Dogs that would teach them, one wagging tail at a time, that love could cross any boundary. 10 years after the council hearing, Maya stood at the entrance of the first Galactic Canine Academy, watching as the latest class of graduates received their certifications. There were handlers from 28 different species in this class, each one paired with a dog they had trained over the past year. The ceremony was being broadcast across the galaxy, with an estimated audience of 3 billion viewers. Beside her stood a statue of Biscuit, commissioned by the Galactic Commerce Council to honor the dog who started it all. Biscuit herself had passed away 4 years ago, peacefully, in her sleep, with Maya holding her until the end. It had been the hardest thing Maya had ever experienced, harder even than losing her mother. But she had found comfort in knowing that Biscuit's legacy would live on. And what a legacy it was! There were now over 2 million dogs living on alien worlds. The waiting list had been eliminated years ago, replaced by a system of breeding programs distributed across the galaxy. Dogs were being born on space stations, on colony ships, on planets light years from Earth. They were adapting to new environments, forming bonds with species that had never dreamed of such connections. The impact went far beyond individual companionship. Studies showed that trading posts with established dog populations had significantly lower rates of conflict. Species that had been historical enemies found common ground in their shared love of canines. The Corthians and the Vellani, who had fought 3 wars over territorial disputes, now co-hosted the largest annual dog show in the sector. Even the hegemony of Voss had changed. The Vossian representative who had spoken at the council hearing, whose name Maya had learned was Vorak, had become one of the most passionate advocates for the program. He had written a book about his experiences that had become required reading in Vossian schools. It was controversial, of course. Many Vossians still believed that emotional bonds were weakness. But the next generation was growing up with a different perspective, and change was coming, slowly but surely. Maya watched as the graduates filed past, each dog walking proudly beside its handler. There were golden retrievers, of course, but also breeds that had never existed on Earth. Dogs adapted for low-gravity environments. Dogs bred for compatibility with aquatic species. Dogs engineered to communicate with beings who could not hear in the traditional sense. Humanity had created dogs once, 10,000 years ago, by taking wolves and shaping them into companions. Now they were doing it again, creating new forms of that ancient bond for beings they had never imagined meeting. Captain Chen, a young human, approached her, wearing the uniform of the Academy staff. "You have a visitor." Maya turned to find Commander Thex walking toward her. He was retired now, spending his days with Max, who was quite old but still healthy. The Corthian moved more slowly than he used to, but his eyes were bright. "Old friend," he said, clasping her hands in the Corthian greeting. "I hoped I would find you here." "I would not miss it," Maya said. "How is Max?" "Napping in the ship. He does not have the energy for ceremonies anymore." Thex looked at the statue of Biscuit. "I remember when I first saw her, in the food court. I thought she was a monster." "You did have your weapon drawn." "I was terrified, all those teeth, those predator eyes. I could not understand why she was not attacking anyone." He shook his head. "I have thought about that day many times over the years, how close I came to shooting her, what would have happened if I had." "But you did not." "No, because of the Vellani, that little one who came down from its counter. It was braver than me, and it was a fraction of my size." Thex was quiet for a moment. "That is the lesson, I think. The one I have learned from all of this. Courage is not about being unafraid. It is about reaching out anyway." Maya nodded. She had learned that lesson too, in her own way. When she had taken Biscuit aboard her ship, she had been trying to hold on to something from her old life. She had not known that she was about to create a new one. The ceremony ended, and the graduates dispersed to celebrate with their families. Maya and Thex walked through the academy grounds, past training facilities and veterinary clinics and housing units where dogs and handlers lived during their year of instruction. "I have something for you," Thex said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small device and handed it to her. "It is a recording from the original incident report, the one I filed after finding Biscuit in the food court." Maya activated the device. Thex's voice played back, younger and more formal than he sounded now. "Subject is a quadrupedal mammalian creature, approximately 20 kilograms in mass. Forward-facing eyes indicate predatory evolutionary background. Teeth are designed for tearing flesh. Threat assessment: high. Recommend immediate containment and removal from station." The recording paused, then continued. "Update: subject has been observed engaging in what appears to be play behavior with station residents. Multiple species have made physical contact with subject without apparent harm. Human handler claims subject is a companion animal with no aggressive tendencies. Recommend further observation before containment. Personal note: I do not understand what I am seeing. The creature appears to be enjoying the attention. Its tail is wagging. Maya laughed, tears forming in her eyes. You were so confused. I was, but I was also curious. That is what saved her, I think. That moment of curiosity instead of fear. Thex took back the device. I thought you should have that, for the museum they are building. The museum. You have not heard. The Council is establishing a museum dedicated to the history of human-canine relations and their spread throughout the galaxy. They want artifacts from the beginning. Original reports, photographs, testimonials. He smiled, that rare Corthian expression. They want your story, Maya. Maya looked back at the academy, at the young handlers walking with their dogs, at the future that she had accidentally created. Her story. It seemed too small a word for everything that had happened. It is not my story, she said finally. It is Biscuit's story, and Max's story, and the story of every dog that ever wagged its tail at a stranger and asked to be loved. She reached into her own pocket and pulled out a worn leather collar. Biscuit's collar, the one she had worn for her entire life. Give them this, she said, handing it to Thex, and tell them that this is where it started, with one dog who escaped from her container and showed the galaxy what love looks like. That evening, Maya sat in her quarters, alone for the first time in years. She had a new dog now, a young golden retriever named Sunrise who was visiting with Dr. Rila for the night. The silence felt strange after so long. She pulled up the Galactic network and browsed through the discussion groups dedicated to dogs. There were millions of posts now, in thousands of languages. Stories of joy and loss, of first meetings and final goodbyes. Pictures of dogs playing on worlds with purple skis and green suns. Videos of puppies meeting their new alien families for the first time. One post caught her attention. It was from a Vashan child only 12 years old. The post was simple, just a picture of a small dog sleeping on the child's bed with a caption that read, I was scared at first, but now I am not scared anymore. Maya smiled. That was it really. The whole story in one sentence. They had all been scared at first. Scared of connection, scared of vulnerability, scared of loving something that could be lost. But the dogs had taught them to reach out anyway, to wag their tails at strangers, to ask for belly rubs, to curl up beside someone and simply be together. Humans had given that gift to the galaxy. Not technology or resources or military might, just love. Simple, unconditional, tail-wagging love. And the galaxy had said yes. The door chimed, and Sunrise bounded in, her whole body wiggling with excitement at being reunited with her human. Maya gathered the young dog in her arms and held her close, feeling the warmth and the heartbeat and the life. Good girl, she whispered, good girl. Outside the viewport, the stars burned in their ancient patterns. Ships moved between them, carrying dogs to distant worlds. And somewhere out there, on planets Maya would never see, children of 100 species were falling asleep with their companions beside them, their dreams full of wagging tails and wet noses and the simple, perfect joy of being loved. This was humanity's gift to the universe. Not a weapon, not a conquest, just a dog, just love. And it was enough.